Welcome to episode 54 of the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Sense, and joining me for part two in our discussion from the AriensCo Museum is Alissa Beyer, Senior Director of Hospitality and Corporate Communications for AriensCo, and Bob Denor and Mel Edinger, who are former Ariens employees who serve as members of the committee at AriensCo Museum and also as tour guides of the facility. We'll pick up the conversation about the halfway point, and I hope you enjoy. So, listeners, we've moved on from the display of the inner workings of the snow throw, the snow blower, and we've kind of gone from removing snow in that area of the museum to the playing in snow part of the museum. And Alissa, could you just give listeners a little bit of description of what we're looking at here in this section of the museum?
Sure. We are in the section with our snowmobiles that we made and modeled from 1965 to 1975. So we have a small collection of 3 snowmobiles that visitors can check out, and a couple of them that they can even sit on.
It's pretty cool. I mean, if you think like VW Beetle, much smaller version, like a one-person Beetle, it looks very similar to what a Volkswagen Beetle from the 50s and 60s would look like. And then there's also, standing in the corner, 2 snowsuits from the, I'm guessing, looks like the late 60s, maybe early 70s, that are very cool. You guys should market those and bring those back, because I would buy one and wear one of those out in winter around Wisconsin right now. So you have you guys call it the snowmobile boom on your material here that's on the wall that people can read through. What was the big driving force behind Ariens wanting to do snowmobiles, and then what led, where did that lead to in the organization as you went forward? Mel, what do you think on that?
Well, in the mid-'60s, snowmobiling was starting to happen, and we thought, well, our salespeople were saying, maybe we should get into snowmobiles. So we thought about it, and yeah, let's do it. In 1968, we designed our first snowmobile, getting into business, and people were having fun playing in the snow, riding, and so on. And we continued to develop the snowmobile until in the 70s. When we started, I think there was like 3 companies making snowmobiles. And by the 70s, there was like 33 companies making snowmobiles, and it was getting very crowded. And it wasn't becoming that profitable, so then we decided, let's discontinue snowmobiles.
But it's still a real cool visual, and you guys are obviously we're in the vanguard when it comes to the design, because a lot of the things I'm looking at in the design right now are still very prevalent in the industry today.
Yes, there's a lot of improvements over the years. When we first started, you didn't have shock absorbers, there's things like that, and the skis maybe a little bit narrow. Now they're wider skis are separated apart further, and you have the suspension to ride on. And in those days, because of where the engine, you're right next to the engine, you get some of the exhaust, and you start smelling a little bit like that, and so on. But that's all been changed, and so it has grown. Unfortunately, lack of snow, the whole market for snowmobiling has really declined, and it was a wise decision at that time for Ariens to say, let's go on back to making more lawnmowers that we're really good at.
So as we turn around from the snowmobiles that we're looking at, we see this display that says 4 million and counting. And what I'm guessing it is a representation. There's 4 snowblowers or snow throws there. So Alissa, does one snowblower equal 1 million, and is that kind of the display theme there?
Correct. Okay. So we proudly share a copy of every 1 million snow throws that we made. And most recently, we are up to 4 million snow throws with a replica of our 4 million snow throw here. And that was achieved in 2018. So we were able to celebrate 4 million snow throws coming out of Brillion, Wisconsin, in Calumet County.
I can't even begin to imagine the number of people hours that went into getting that done. That's a lot of
people, a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat.
Okay, listeners, we've moved once again, and now we're in the part of the museum that has a wall that looks like a timeline. And it's kind of cool because there's copper piping that's used to represent the timeline, the lines on the timeline, or copper tubing, I should say. It's basically called the Founders Wall. Is that right, Bob?
Yes. From Henry Aaron's on the far left side, coming up here in the late 1800s, all the way to the other end where we have Mike Aarons, who did pass away in 2015. And we have a photograph of each one of the founders, which would have been Henry, then Mando, Leon, and Francis. Mando was the engineer. He was the technician of note and the idea guy for so many things that actually were fabricated here in design-wise. Leon was the accountant. He was the stingy one. He wouldn't let anybody do anything unless he made sure it was going to make some money for them. So he watched the pennies pretty tight. And then Francis was the guy that was the youngest, and he ended up being the guy that was basically the quality control guy. And eventually, as time went on, he devised the first outdoor power equipment service schools in the industry and was noted as a forerunner of many, many things that are still done today. And then, of course, Mike, who was Mando's son, one of Mando's 4 sons. The sons were Pat, Steve, Tom, and then Mike. And Mike was president of the company for something like 15 years to that effect. Wonderful, trend-setting man. Very much industry respected, not only him, but the family for what they meant to the whole outdoor power equipment industry.
Yeah, looking at the wall, I see that Henry was born at the end of the Civil War in 1865. And it's kind of appropriate when you look at that and you turn around from looking at the Founders Wall, and you turn and you see that we're in a section of the museum called From the Home Front to the Battlefront. And could you guys, Mel, maybe weigh in on how and what we're looking at here and why this is important to the Aarons family?
Well, in the 40s was World War II, and the government, federal government, the Army, was looking for help to help the invasion of Sicily, and they needed a pair of caissons built. So the Aarons Company was contacted and said, can you build these for us, for the Army? And we said, yeah, I think we can do that. So they gathered up the wives, the children, and everything else, and they had to build 500 cases and really didn't have a blueprint at all to make it, but they had a sample. So they ended up working day and night, building these pair of caissons. And a pair of caisson is an ammunition bucket where you put all kinds of ammunition in it. And then what happened is the troops were kind of caught between the water, the sea, and the land, and they needed to get ammunition to them to replenish their supplies. So the only way to do that was to take an airplane and parachute it down to them.
And we see a parachute here, a couple of them actually above this one that's a mock-up here on the diagram that's there.
So that worked out very well and successful, and it was an accomplishment. And then for that effort, they received an ordnance award from the federal government for their helping them through that, through the war.
Now I noticed when we came in here too, there's a table that has a glass covering on it. People, if you come through the museum, be mindful of that. It's not really meant to be touched. And maybe you can describe here, Bob, you've got this kind of, I don't know what the scale is. It looks like, is there a scale?
Tiny.
It's a tiny scale, folks. You think the little army soldier guys that you used to get in the buckets when you were younger. It's about that size, maybe a little smaller than that even. And can you maybe walk listeners through what this is?
Sure. In the very last stages of the war, the amount of tooling that was available in the United States was dramatic nobody needed that much tooling anymore because the war effort had been basically satisfied. So the government was offering to industry pennies on the dollar for all of the excess tooling, drill presses, screw machines, whatever, lathes, whatever was available. And the Ariens company was offered a certain amount of money, and they had their choice of what they wanted. So they made their decision, and in order to be able to put all of that equipment into this plant on Calumet Street, one of the guys in the office actually took balsa wood and made little figurines of all of the equipment so that when it came here, they already had it laid out on the plant where those pieces of equipment could go and where they could fit. Rather than moving them around all over the place, which would cause real chaos because this stuff is very, very heavy. So I was given a cigar box full of all of these little pieces of balsa wood. And a gentleman named Willard Shuntz, who was the vice president of engineering for many, many years, he knew where most of that stuff laid. So I got a hold of him. I got a print of the layout of the company platform itself. And I asked him, I said, can you help me? Can you help me do this? He said, sure, I know where most of that stuff was. So I numbered the bottom of each one of those pieces of figurine, and he told me where it should go, so I just put a number on the board, and then after it was all said and done, I just glued everything together and put it in plastic, and now it's on display. So it's actually the result. This display showed the result of the end of the war years, the result for, we tooled the whole company for the future, all by the war effort excess.
Very interesting. It's quite a work of art, actually. If you listeners, if you get a chance to come by and look at it, to see the size and the scale represented, but then the detail on the work is very impressive. Mel, did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I just want to add that because of the involvement in the war, we were able to obtain all of this manufacturing equipment, which really turned the company from a blacksmith shop, per se, to a realized manufacturing company. So that's the benefit of being involved in the war and working with the federal government.
So we've left the home front to battlefront section of the museum, and now you turn the corner and there's this really cool size of like those, remember those big turn of the century, last century bicycles that you see people riding with the small wheel and the really big wheel? It's kind of a similar look, folks. But it's two gears, where you have the large wheel, which is represented by a 60 teeth gear, and then the small wheel represented by a 15 teeth gear. And Mel, could you walk listeners through why this is here, what it's for?
Well, it's also a little bit of a STEM thing to educate students about gearing and ratios and that sort of thing, and how, because there's a lot of gears involved in Ariens products. We wanted to give them an example of how gears can increase speed or decrease speed, and that's why we have the big gear that has 60 teeth on it and a little gear that has 15 teeth, and it's to show that this has to rotate much faster than that. So when kids come through, I ask them, I said, okay, this is to show you a ratio of how many times you have to turn this one, the little one, versus the big one. And I've had a kid come up and he says, well, it's 4. I said, how do you know that? I was here yesterday. but the lesson is that you have 60, you divide it by 15, gives you a ratio of 4 to 1.
Okay.
That means you got to turn this 4 times, turn the big gear 1 time.
So I imagine this is really popular with the kids when they come through, trying to turn that
and
crank there.
I said, how many of your kids have a bicycle? Okay, which gear would be where your pedals are? And which one would be, well, I think it would be, this would be the pedals. I said, not so, because if you're gonna, because now you have multi-speed bikes, but normally this would be your pedal one, you're pedaling, and you're turning your rear tire at a certain speed, And by changing sprockets front and back, you can change your speeds.
So the lesson
that
there
gets
is
their attention and
Sure.
they're listening.
so the lesson there is obviously you want to pedal with the smaller gear of the two.
If you want to go faster.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're kind of leaving the war effort and then the snow area of the museum, and then you gotta love the fact that we are now talking summertime, and you've got a whole area here dedicated to lawnmowers. Can you walk us through that arm of the Ariens Company, Mel, and maybe give listeners an idea of what we're looking at through that doorway?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, in 1982, Ariens Company was looking to increase their lawnmower business and get more into commercial lawn mowing. We were struggling in that regard. We did well when it snowed well. When summer came, we did okay with lawn and garden products, but can we somewhere look forward to say improve our products or do something to improve our lawn mowing business? So at that time, a company called Gravely was available, and we had a little bit of a connection with some people there, and we then ended up purchasing the Gravely company. And they were in the Carolinas, that's it. And they built products that were very durable and had a good name for durability in the commercial area and recognized as such. And as it turned out, it proved to be very successful for us. But we wanted to establish a portion of our museum dedicated to the Gravely products, where they became notable for the lawn, or not the lawn, but the tilling of products as well. And it's amazing how Ben Gravely, Henry Ariens, had the same kind of mindset of working with the soil to help consumers grow gardens or cut grass or whatever. So this display will show, they started out with a patented unit in 1906, and then how that changed into more user-friendly products as time goes on. And this display is really quite nice, neat. It shows how the mindset you needed to progress and produce products needed for the job that you needed to do.
And as you walk through it, listeners, it's kind of like walking back, I would say, a 1900s building, maybe late 1800s. Walking through the facade doorway, it's like you're entering a factory floor, and there's a big mural in the background to kind of help with that illusion. And inside there are numerous different Gravely units that are available for people to look at and see over the course of time in the development of the lawnmower and the riding lawnmower as we go forward.
Yes, it started out with a single drive wheel in the front, patented, and then went away from that because it was cumbersome and didn't work all that well. Because again, how do I improve my products? And then he went to a two-wheel unit, and then he had a power unit that he could put different attachments on. And that's kind of what is displayed in this portion of the museum.
Okay, we just left the Gravely portion of the museum, and immediately exiting the facade of the factory, the Gravely factory, you walk out and you see this mural of a desert highway, and in front of the desert highway is this really cool orange Ariens motorcycle chopper. Yeah, and it's a low riding chopper, folks. I mean, it's got the seat about maybe 24, not even 18 inches off the ground, I'd say. And that front wheel is awfully tiny, and the back wheel's wide but small as well. And then you've got the big apparatus and the handlebars up that aren't the big ones you have to reach up for, but they're still pretty high up when you look at where the seating is on here. And could you walk us through this, Mel? What are we looking at with this chopper?
Well, 16 years ago, Ariens Company was involved with our local schools to start teaching STEM. And it was instrumental. They added an addition to the high school for STEM purposes. It's called an engineering portion. And to start STEM, they chose 5 senior boys to say, we want to start teaching STEM. and incorporate that into our teaching. And now STEM is taught throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, and it's been very successful. And it keeps the kids interested. I just know I have a couple of grandsons that have gone through that, and my grandson come home, well, I got to get back to school. Well, I'm working on a STEM project. So it created excitement, and so this happened to be the very first project that the boys did. They said, okay, we're going to start STEM. You need to design a product, build it, buy the parts you need, and so on, and design your parts. And it kind of worked with our engineers at that time as well. So five guys, what do you want to build? Think of something. How about a motorcycle? Well, go for it. So the teacher thought, go ahead, start designing what you think it ought to be, and so on. So then they start thinking, well, we need a front wheel, we need all this and that. So they kind of put their design together, and not so sure what was all in their mind, why it sits really low to the ground, and I'm sure they're thinking, I'm riding and driving a motorcycle. But what the kids did is they took robbed Peter to pay Paul a little bit. They took like a discharge chute off of a snowblower and created a front fender, so they had to go through that whole process of shrinking it down to fit this product. And same thing for the back. There's sides of snowblowers, augers in the back for a hitch, and so on. And then the purchasing kid said, well, we need an engine, we need a gas tank. So he would contact companies for a gas tank, an engine, and so on, and then the companies would donate it to them. And they finally got it built, but they never actually finished it. But it is the first attempt at teaching STEM in Brillion.
And that's Alissa, really, when you think about it, that's a real testimony to the opportunities that we have in this community that are helped paid for and underwritten by not only Aaron's company, but other companies like Hendry's International. If you're talking to somebody who's outside of the area thinking of coming to this area, I'm assuming this is something that you would show them and talk to them about the great opportunities in our educational system here. What kind of reaction do you get from people that are moving to the area when they find out about the STEM programs and all that AriensCo has done over the years there?
I think people are extremely surprised in a positive way about everything that AriensCo has done for the local communities and the local schools. And this is, as Mel referenced, just the beginning of that relationship. It is truly special. Our goal here at AriensCo is to have people go through the Brillion School District. We want them to grow, learn, and thrive, and then come back hopefully and work at AriensCo. So hopefully this provides a pipeline of talent. So people who want to stay in Brillion, we want to hire you as well. So we're always looking for great people, and we always love hiring from the local area, especially people who've gone through the Brillion School District and have gone through the STEM program that we've provided.
And if I may add to that a little bit, is that school choice, we get about 100 kids per year attending Brillion schools because of choice.
Correct.
From other school districts. Yeah, they take from the school districts in the area, which is part, and then back and forth other people. Other schools get kids, from other districts as well, but this is part of it. This is an attraction. There's no doubt about it. And good for Brillion, good for Brillion.
All right, we're on the move, listeners, and we've come from the Chopper area of the museum, and now we're entered an area called Suburbia. And what I'm looking at is a 1960s style house, or at least the family room of a 60s house that has a patio, complete with the metal 60s chairs, the metal patio decking, the metal patio tables, and all those types of things. And can you maybe tell me, Mel, what is this representing as people come through and see this? What are they seeing?
The 1960s was the time when people were beginning to buy homes and suburbia was happening. So we thought that's a big time in history where changes to more people moving into cities and living. It's a very good time frame. So we displayed the products we were producing at that time, but then to give you a good feel as to what homes looked like, we added Grandma's living room that has many of the furnitures at that time, has a TV. And of course, on the TV is playing an Ariens advertisement. So it should give you a good feel of what the 60s were like.
Okay. And then from suburbia, you look out the backyard here, so to speak, and I'm looking at a gazebo and a lot of other, it looks like riding lawnmower equipment. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that, Mel?
Okay, this then shows the start of the Ariens lawn mowing business of the company. We started in the late 50s with this lawnmower, first attempt at a riding lawnmower, which actually, when we thought about it, looks like, operated like a zero-turn lawnmower. Because you pull, it was operated by pulling a lever one way or the other, with apply the brake, and it would turn. And they found that it wasn't quite what we really wanted to operate and steer it, because it did well on flat turf, but on hillside it didn't. You had not as good a control as you would like. So then we started with other lawnmowers where we had tiller bar steering, shall we say, where you had control, and then we also have with a steering wheel. And those were through the years till about 2000, actually late 90s, when we started, there was a market for zero turns. And Dan Ariens was very instrumental in saying we need to get into the zero turn market, because that is now a growing business. And that was our first attempts at zero turns on our Gravely product line and also on the Ariens product line. And then that was the beginning of our success in the zero turn market. And one of the reasons Gravely, when we purchased Gravely, also became helpful in name recognition for quality and durability. So that really got us going into the zero turn market. So the rest of this area does show where we were in the tractor business, and that kind of died slowly as the zero turns really took off. And you'll see quite a display of zero turns, and we are in the future want to add a few more of the latest products that are not quite on display yet, but we'll be doing that as we continue on.
So Bob, from your perspective, having gone through the museum, what do you think that listeners would get out of coming here and seeing it in person? What things do you think they would learn or maybe have a better understanding of?
As far as the entire museum itself?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how evolutionary Ariens Company has actually been when it comes to the design function of each one of the units that they've made, from the big tiller, what it did for all of the people in elevated beds and all that type of stuff, to the fact that you had a transition. You got away from dirt and you got into snow. Well, then not only did they get out of snow, still in snow, but then they went into grass. It's a heck of an evolution. And in all phases of those evolutions, for a little company on the northeast corner of Calumet County, is considered number one in how many different areas of its product. And that's pretty doggone amazing to have that kind of history. John Deere can't say that. Toro can't say that. MTD can't say that. None of them can say that. Ariens is unique.
So it's an impressive collection here, no doubt. And listeners, it is worth the time. It's worth the trip. It's a destination point, and there's so many other things to come and see and do that you'd want to add on to that day at the Ariens Museum, the AriensCo Museum. Alyssa, a couple of things just to follow up on a few things. There's what are the hours of the museum, and what's the cost to come through the museum?
Great question. We're actually proudly reopening our museum on Thursday afternoons to the public. So we're open from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. During that time, you can receive a guided tour through the museum, just like you just did now, Rick, with one of our museum committee members. Those tours are available on the hour at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. Or if that's not your thing, it's certainly fine too. You can come through and do a self-guided tour if you like as well. We'll also have our museum store open at that same time. So we have a retail store at the front of our museum that is filled with AriensCo and Gravely gear, as well as other non-Ariens related products. We've got local honey, we've got puzzles, we've got candles, a little bit of something for everyone here at the AriensCo Museum.
And what was the cost again?
Sorry, the cost
That's okay.
is complimentary.
Okay.
So there is no charge to visit the museum. We will accept donations if you feel necessary or if you're inclined to do so as a token of appreciation for what you've seen here. All donations go towards the Ariens Family Foundation, which supports scholarships for local students as well as AriensCo employees. And they also support other kind of like family-centered activities in our local communities where AriensCo is located.
Okay. Where can people go to learn more, get more information about AriensCo Museum?
That's a great question. You can visit our website, the AriensCo Museum, or you can email at amuseum@ariensco.com or give us a call at our main number, 920-756-2141, and ask to talk to someone in the museum space.
All right.
We will also accept appointments to come in, so in case that Thursday afternoon is not applicable to you or doesn't work for your schedule, give us a call, shout out, let us know. We'll open the museum anytime.
Okay. So thank you, Alissa. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate your time today and being guests on the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. It's really great to learn about the history housed within the walls here at the AriensCo Museum. And if you like what you heard today or in previous episodes, please help us spread the word by inviting a couple of friends to listen to the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. Help us share the news of all the great things to see here in Calumet County, like the AriensCo Museum in Brillion. Thank you for listening, and until next time.